Welcome back to the Observe Day podcast, where we celebrate the special observances and the voices that bring them to life. September is National Read a New Book Month, a chance to remind ourselves of the magic of books, the wisdom they hold, and the journeys they inspire. Today, we're joined by someone who has dedicated his career to helping people not only read books, but also write and publish them. Rodney Miles, also known as the Book Dude, has been in the publishing space for over 14 years. He's helped bring more than 300 books into the world, spanning self-help, business, memoir, fiction, and children's literature, and is the author of the Book Dude's Guide to Self-Publishing, the modern author. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Wisdom. It's good to
Yeah,
be with you.
yeah,
It's always good to be with you.
I'm glad we're finally doing this.
Yes. By the way, I want to thank you because your audience might not know this, but Wisdom is staying up into the middle of the night to accommodate his guests in Florida, and it's deeply appreciated. So you got to promise you'll get some sleep after this.
Yeah, well,
Okay, cool.
Thank you for the compliment.
Absolutely.
It's National Read a New Book Month. The question I want us to start with is, what's the last new book you read, and what stood out about the book?
It's a good question. I don't read as quickly as I'd like, but I realized one day everyone who reads a lot says that. So that might be some kind of excuse, but I usually have a couple of books that I'm reading, and I've tried to narrow that to one book at a time to see if I made quicker progress. But something unrelated to my business, something personal. But right now I'm reading two books. I'm reading the Neville Goddard Reader, which is basically philosophy. He was a New Thought writer, author, and lecturer from the early 20th century. Very cool stuff. And it's aligning with a lot of the other things that I've been reading and watching videos on and kind of checking out. And I'm reading Wheat Belly. I think it's Dr. William Davis. I'm not sure author's name. I'm sorry, but that's something I've meant to read for quite a while. I found a few years ago that I might have a gluten intolerance, and which isn't as bad as like celiac disease, but he's kind of isolated that. So, and in what I do, I get to read a lot of new books because sometimes I'm hired to edit a book actually, I just reviewed an early partial manuscript for a client of mine who writes really good science fiction. He's got one book out called Code Extinction, The War of Ascent, Book 1, Code Extinction by Reza Rajabi. And it's fantastic. It was the first science fiction book I've read in a while. And I was really a science fiction fan growing up and my whole life. So I get to read things like that. I have another client I started a full read on today, whose book will hopefully be coming out soon. I should probably hold off on the title and so on until it is, but because we've delayed it a bit to make some changes, which happens.
Yeah.
And it's a book about mediumship. It's about spiritualism and how he counsels people who are grieving. So I thought you caught me with my pants down because I'm like, well, what new book am I reading? But I realize it's kind of what I do.
Exactly. It's like it's one of like it's an obvious question. Like, yeah, what are you working on? And I'm like, yeah, I work on a lot of books. Okay, in your experience, why is reading a new book important? Now, when I say reading a new book, I mean it from two contexts. One is you're reading a new book, right? A book you've never read before, and you're also reading a new book, a book that just came out right recently. It's just got published. Why is it so important, not just for writers, but for everyone?
Oh, man, a couple of reasons. I'll tell you what first jumps to mind is forming new neural pathways. I don't have studies or anything like that, but from what I understand, not too many years ago, I found out they used to think you couldn't, as you aged, your neural pathways disintegrated and that was it. And then they found that's not true. That challenge, or if you stimulate your mind, you form new synaptic connections and neural pathways, and it's a way to maybe preserve your mental health and your mind. And it wasn't that, for example, it was relative to the person. So if you're a neurosurgeon, reading a book on neurosurgery ain't going to help you. If you're a neurosurgeon and you take up tennis and read a book on tennis, that might help you because it's a new subject. It stimulates and it stimulates your mind. So uh, that's the first thing that comes to mind is just that it's healthy. It's very healthy, and our mind is senior to our body. I really believe so. Important in those ways. So um, the other thing is, and it's interesting. You ask good questions. um, I have had so much work lately. It's a real blessing. I
Okay.
love what I do. Love to be busy as I am, and so on. But as a way of staving off burnout, there's a couple things you can do, and one of those is to take a break or take a vacation. Of course, that's kind of the natural one. But another is just to add an unrelated subject. So I recently decided that my car needs its air conditioning fixed, right? And I got an estimate from a mechanic and so on. It was all
Okay.
reasonable. But I've worked on my own cars and I enjoy it. And I decided, maybe I'll work on the air conditioning. It's a little intimidating, but it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
So, so I added this sort of side study and I've been reading up on it. I've been watching videos in between. I'll do a 2 or 3 hour period of work on editing or book cover design or something. And then I'll watch a 15-minute video on car repair. And it has been wonderful. It has, I don't know, it just wakes you up. To add something new like that, I think addresses your question and can really balance you out. I also recently found out from my daughter that I probably have ADHD. So adding this other subject falls right. And I don't see it as a disability. It's just I tend to like to read 3 books at a time or whatever. So the
Yeah.
little air conditioning thing has been great. So there's a couple,
Okay.
I think, pretty good reasons.
Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observe Day newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation. You've worked with more than 300 books. What inspired you to enter the publishing world and help
Oh,
others share their stories?
oh yes. I I think I was meant to do it my whole life. Talk about in my book, The Book Dude's Guide. I give a little background and growing up, my mom read and read, and she would read a book at red lights, sitting in the car. Any opportunity, she'd read a little bit. She had a fiction library at home,
Yeah,
and growing up, anything that I couldn't easily find out from somebody else, I found in a book. So from my childhood, I found books to be a place where I could find out anything I wanted. And also as an escape, I read a lot of Mad Magazine and bought the little paperbacks, and that evolved, to where it was a nice hobby throughout my life. I love books. I When I met my wife when I was 19, 20 years old, one of our favorite things, and probably the reason we're still together, is we would go to used bookstores for entertainment, find old books and leather bounds. And so it was a passion my whole life. And I neglected it until I was 40. Had other businesses and renovations and real estate and so on. And then the real estate market burst in 2007. I was 40. Well, I was 37, but by 40, I got into writing and I had
yeah,
always wanted to. I did in college and I got discouraged and dropped it. To discover that at 40, 40 is a great age, by the way. You get a different perspective. We can do an episode on that, but it was wonderful. I went back to college, everything, and I started writing at a penny a word, and just loved the business. I found out how to publish ebooks, then wanted to do print books, then wanted to do hardcover books. It just kept unfurling to where
yeah,
for the last 15 years now, uh, it's been a great ride. It's been a lot of fun to learn books, to learn how to publish, how to do cover design, how to edit, different types of editing, the way to market books, the way to create a platform for all. You know what I mean? It's a very rich, uh, kind of a luxury of a career with its high points because I've helped got books published that I'm very proud of mine and lots of other authors, and I've actually helped a few books get published that wouldn't have been published otherwise that are very important books too. So yeah, so that's my inspiration. It was kind of in my DNA, I think.
Well, you mentioned you reinvented yourself at 40. I'm curious, what role did books and writing play in that transformation?
Well, I actually had to decide if I was going to stay in real estate, given the business was in shambles. Lenders weren't lending. It was really a very interesting, tough period. I considered staying because I knew a lot of people who weren't serious were going to leave. Um, but then it was an opportunity to consider other options. I mentioned I went back to college. I went back to college to further my a degree and become a lawyer. It was the original idea at 40. But my dad pushed me to write, to freelance. He found out about a website called Elance, and I was looking for a side gig anyway. So I started ghostwriting at a penny a word 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think when you find something that you're kind of meant to do or that you love, I think Jim Collins talks about it. There are things you love, and there's things you love that you also have some aptitude for. There are things you love you don't have aptitude for. So this happened to be something that I had a particular aptitude for. Um, I don't think I'm going to go down in history as the next Hemingway, but I have a set of skills that span the pretty much all the facets of publishing. So I've been able to make a very happy career out of that.
Yeah. A lot of persons know that reading a book is kind of therapeutic, but nobody really talks about writing a book, how it can be therapeutic for the writer. Can you share a story of an author who experienced that transformation of, they're like, oh, I wrote this book, it was really therapeutic.
Yeah, almost everyone, to tell you the truth. I recognize that when helping people write memoirs. And then I realized, just looking back, even people who write business books. One of the first, I worked with a company where we did a lot of kind of short books, and that's probably about 150 of my claimed 300 books, right? I oversaw a lot of them. I pitched in some way. But when I went out on my own, that publishing house dissolved, and I went out on my own, and it
Yeah.
was perfect because I got to work with fewer clients and go deeper with them and would spend a little more time working on their books. And one of the first books I got to help with was a brilliant book called The Power of Done by Cynthia
Mm.
Freeman. And it's a great book. Anybody into self-help business efficiency really needs to check it out. She had her own method. She very logical method to write the book. She laid it out in an outline. Actually, I think she used a board with post-its and then would fill in the chapters below them, and very organized approach. But I realized even back then, this has got to be 14 years ago. She told me one day, we were talking about the book, and she said, wait a minute, I realized, this chapter goes before this chapter or something like that. And I realized, how cool is that? She'd been a coach 25 years at that point. She was on the bus with Tony Robbins before he was Tony Robbins, right? And only by writing the book and having me as her muse and an editor and organizer and book designer, she improved or perfected her process. So I thought that was just fantastic. And then it's actually nothing new. It was new to me, but
Yeah.
when you read about the process from other sources, I have seen it discussed where it's known that when you write a book, you reflect, you look back on your business, and to this day, I've worked with brilliant people who had brilliant careers, and by writing the book, it just happened recently. Actually, we launched a book. We uploaded and published a book today on
Oh.
private equity,
Hmm.
and this fellow is so accomplished in his field. But through the process of writing the book, he changed some terminology. He perfected some of his methodology and so on. Now, when you apply that to a memoir, it's personally therapeutic and cathartic because you look back and you reevaluate and you realize things, and it kind of straightens out. Very healthy if the process is done right. If you're not jammed up against a deadline, or if you don't hire the wrong help or something. If it's a fairly healthy or a very healthy, happy process, then I don't know. I think I sometimes think everybody should write a book just for that reason alone, even if they don't publish
Yeah.
it, but you should publish it.
Yeah. Well, in the age of short content, social media, what role do you see books still playing in shaping culture and thought?
Well, that's a really good point because it's affected books already. Um, it's funny, I mentioned ADHD, but people generally have shorter attention spans. You can really see that with a like a summer read by James Patterson or something. And I'm not really a fan, but I made myself read summer read by one of James Patterson's franchisees type books, and the chapters were like 3 pages. I think there was a 1 page chapter in there, and I realized I'm being very critical, and I will be because it wasn't my thing. Maybe a fun kind of not a deep read at all, for the beach or the
Yeah.
summer or whatever. But it showed me. But there is a fellow who's perfected the business and marketing side of authorship with how he works. So that book was quite clearly planned that way to satisfy short attention spans. Now, to get back to your broader question, with short attention spans today, what role do books play? They're actually playing the same uh, role. In fact, I have a lot of people kind of just assume offhand that people don't read like they used to.
Yeah.
It's actually not true. The opposite is true,
Well,
and I think it's evident. I don't have numbers or anything, but I would suggest if you expand what you mean by read. So if you mean read if you mean with a print book in your hands, maybe people are reading fewer print books, but they're reading ebooks. They're reading
audiobooks.
audiobooks. Actually, some of the most voracious readers only read audiobooks. If you include those things, and when you find somebody who reads audiobooks or listens to audiobooks, you find out they go through a book a week, 2 books a week,
Yeah.
and you wonder how can that be? Well, it's because they do it on a treadmill or while they're driving, or
Yeah.
so people are reading more and more. The formats available are more and more. And actually, and the books being published is off the charts. Remember, a few years ago, we passed the 1 million mark in a year, and now
Well,
it's well over 2 million. It's probably 2.5 or 3 million books a year published now. So I do also think, and I think this is relevant to your question, I've been very skeptical of AI, right? But I'm using it now for a couple of things. I think people are too eager about it. But with all these books being published, with all this information out there, one thing I find AI is doing in kind of a hard to believe kind of way
yeah.
is almost instantly organizing information. So we're in my lifetime, we've been in what I would call the information revolution because of the internet, but it even goes back further to the satellite. And with information at our fingertips, we had a problem up until recently of too much information. And this is evidenced by other thinkers and writers, like the old classic on marketing called Positioning, The Battle for Your Mind. They talk
Yeah.
about information everywhere, right? Well, AI is providing one way to corral it and get to what you're trying to find out very specifically, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that can have a profound effect on people getting not just information, but the information that they're looking for.
Wow. Hmm. Thank you for that. While we're talking about reading, I'm also talking about writing. Basically, there can be any reading without writing, so they work hand in hand. For someone who wants to use this National Reading New Book Month, and as a beginning point, they want to use reading as a springboard for writing. How can they do that?
Well, it's they actually really go hand in hand. A problem a lot of writers make is they don't read enough. Um, If it, on its face, it would seem to be like there should be some kind of balance that you could read. Now, I don't want to diverge from what you asked, but
Okay.
there are even tactics. Like if you want to write like Hemingway, read Hemingway while you're writing. In fact, if you switch who you're reading, let's say you're writing a book and you read Hemingway and then you change and you read James Joyce, your style of writing will probably change
Yeah.
because that'll have an influence on you. There's even a drill, which is really fascinating if you want to develop your chops, your writing chops, so to speak. And there's a writer you really love. I learned this exercise years ago. It's really kind of amazing. Like, let's say Eric Larson's one of my favorite writers. If you want to write like Eric Larson, crack open a book and either type or write out what he wrote. Instead of just reading it, by copying it, by writing it, it puts you more into the mind of the writer and can give you ahas about your writing. Yeah, there's a lot that can be said on
Yeah.
reading and writing and how they influence and help each other. In fact, when
Yeah.
I work with a client, I can kind of tell how well read they are. I can tell if they read as a hobby or not, and I can absolutely tell if they read a lot because it shows in their writing. It just comes easier. If someone's writing a memoir and they read a lot of memoirs, they or they read novels or whatever, it flows a little easier. Um, so yeah,
Oh,
there's a many ways.
just as a follow-up on that question, what resources do you offer for aspiring authors who want to start their publishing journey?
Well, I'd say that thanks for asking that. I get to plug. Uh, well, it is my business, but it's also a passion, and I I'd like to, for the rest of my career, be able to have a hand or be able to help uh, people write and publish books, whether you're a prince or a pauper, right? I offer professional services that span the whole range of the publishing process, everything from planning the idea through the book, through your author platform, through marketing and publicity and career development, all of it, right?
Yeah.
Because in 15 years, it's been of interest to me. Now, if you don't hire me, that's okay too. I
Yeah.
have a book on the subject. It's right here. The Book Dude's Guide to Self-Publishing. Book one, The Modern Author, which will bring you up to speed on the industry today. And I think it's important. I think there are other authors you should read as well, like Joanna Penn and David Gochran, and a lot of self-published authors who influenced my thinking over the last 15 years. But my book has a little unique tact in that it's designed to bring you up to speed with the business. So you're not confused or tricked when you get involved. And of course, the book is, I think it's $8 for the ebook. It's cheap. So 250 pages of information on the business with tips on writing and publishing and everything. Now, um, for free, you can go to my website, rodneymiles.com. And if you scroll down an inch on the homepage, there's a link where you can download my Book Dude bundle for free, completely free, right? So you get a
Yeah.
copy of the entire book in PDF format for free. You get a chart that shows the publishing process, the 10 stages of what you're going to be doing to get your book published, PDF chart of that. And there's also a document that explains all the accounts you'll need with links and a little bit of advice on how to get your ISBNs, how to file your copyright, how to
Yeah.
associations you can join. So I think there's three. I'm adding a fourth, unless I've done it already. 3 or 4 different free PDFs you can get on my website, and if I were me, I would get them. They're designed to be helpful, and look, me and everyone else who does this kind of thing, 97% of the people who get that bundle are just going to use it. That's great. It is designed to meet and engage with people, but if it
Mm.
was strictly something I was trying to target high-end clients with, it wouldn't be that necessarily. So
Yeah.
I think I really did put that out there to try to put something helpful out there, and encourage people to publish books.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Rodney, for this conversation and for the resource you just shared. Once again, I'd love for you to just repeat the link people can visit to learn more about the work you do and connect with you.
Sure. RodneyMiles.com.
Okay,
RODNEYMILES.com.
I'll put the link in the description and the show notes so listeners can click and go directly um, to the site. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight chatting with you. I'm glad we got to do the interview.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much. That's a whole nother story, which maybe we'll share another time. But thank you and get
Yeah,
some sleep. God bless.
that's it for today's episode of the Observe Day podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life's special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.